Jake Delhomme comes on the program, former Ragin Cajun quarterback, longtime NFL quarterback, and NFC champion, and the equestrian one. I don't think anyone's ever called him that, but I just did. Jake, man, what's going on?
Everything's good. It's a Christmas time and bowl time and things like that. So things are good.
Eyesight's good?
Eyesight is always good, Scott. I appreciate you always being concerned.
2020. Look, I remember the little, was it the spring game or fan day when y'all had the quarterback competition? And, you smoked everybody. And I said, that's proof that the eyes are still perfect.
No, I got lucky, man. It was just one of those days. The wind didn't blow. I got lucky.
Jake Delhomme is our guest. Jake, let's talk about this year's Ragin Cajun football team. They've punched their ticket to the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl with a win last Saturday in a cold and rainy Monroe. Not too many folks up at Malone Stadium, but it didn't matter. 30-3 the final, and this year's team certainly kind of started to hit their stride at the right time. From the beginning of the season to now, what do you think the biggest difference is on this football team?
That's a tough question. Obviously it started with a thud against Boise, but I think Boise had a lot to do with that. And then, you get the McNeese win, and we were able to get the South Alabama win, which was huge because they had just beaten I think it was Mississippi State at the time, if I'm correct.
Yep.
So we had some decent wins, and really we went on a stretch where we struggled a good bit. And then two games in particular, the Tulane game and obviously the New Mexico State game. Certainly you can talk about the App State game, the Thursday night game at home. But that was a team that, in all honesty, I think they were just a better team than us, and certainly we didn't perform. But the Tulane and New Mexico State games were very difficult, to say the least, I think, as a fan, because you truly felt you were better than those teams. And if not for, a missed kick here, a missed throw here, a missed tackle here, you win two of those games, and you're sitting a whole lot prettier. But you have to give credit to this team. They did bounce back. They did play, fairly well down the stretch to get some wins. To beat Arkansas State, obviously, was huge at home. Whatever they ran off, 15 straight Sun Belt Conference wins. But to beat them at home was big, and played a respectable game against Georgia, obviously, and then to win last weekend in an absolute horrendous situations weather-wise. But to get that win, and the team's going bowling one more time, fifth time out of 6 years. So they're doing some good things, but I think everybody going into this season, I don't know how much was expected of this team. I mean, heck, your starting quarterback doesn't even show up till the first day of fall camp. I mean, he can't even work out with you in the summer. So that's a tall task.
Anthony Jennings, you just referenced him. Jake, I pointed out earlier this season in games when he would sort of look, nobody likes contact, right? So it's easy for me to say this sitting behind a mic. But, he kind of some guys, I remember Colton Browning, he might get, take a licking, and you would almost sort of feed off of it, right? And Anthony seemed to be going down a little sooner on some of his runs. And, come to find out, it turned out, he was playing through some various injuries. And later in the season, whenever he was, I guess, close to fully healthy, are you ever fully healthy during a season? The answer is probably no, and you would probably say that being a former quarterback. But it seems like from a physicality standpoint, Jennings seems to be taking hits a little bit better. They've utilized the running game with the quarterbacks a lot during this, this last quarter stretch of the season where they won 3 of 4. What's been the biggest difference with him? You mentioned getting into the program late, right, when you start fall workouts. But Jennings-wise, two-part question. From a physicality standpoint, do you feel like he's not shying away from contact quite as much as he was earlier in the year? And then the second part of the question, how much do you think he's more comfortable in that offense that he was at the beginning of the season?
Well, you have to assume, obviously, he's a whole lot more comfortable in the offense. But, early on, I was really impressed in the first few games. I thought the Boise game, he really played great with some circumstances because he didn't have too much time to throw. But did a great job of hitting check downs, making some plays with his feet, getting out the pocket. And then the McNeese game, running in when he did the flip in for the touchdown and things like that. The South Al game, he really did some good things. And the Tulane game for that first quarter, we couldn't block number 77 and number 2. I believe that was the linebacker's number for Tulane. So you're getting hit on every play, and sometimes maybe you get a little gun shy. And we obviously went away from the run, went away from the pass the rest of that game until overtime. And then you score a touchdown 4 times in a row in overtime. So he did some good things then. And then the 2-point play, I think hurt not having Elijah McGuire. He caught the touchdown pass and he came out the game. So your number one weapon's not in there, and your 2-point doesn't help you much. And New Mexico State the following week, he struggled some. I don't think there's any doubt, and I think he would say the same thing, that he did struggle. But kept battling. Look, I'm not going to be I'm going to call it like I see it. Could he have played some better games? Absolutely. But I think what he came into, coming in so late, a whole new system, new teammates, probably trying to learn names. But not only that, you're playing with a young bunch up front. We've struggled offensively blocking people this year. Let's be honest. We've struggled blocking. We've struggled in the run game, creating seams for Elijah to run, and obviously he hasn't been healthy basically all year. So there's been some issues there, and then you're playing with, in essence, when you look at our receiver corps, to me, besides Al Rouse, everything else was freshmen. So you have young guys, and they're in and out with injuries. So continuity is a very difficult thing. And this is where, and I truly believe this, and maybe I'm wrong, I think if Anthony would have come from a program like let's say Georgia, or he came from a transfer from Tennessee, Florida, USC, whatever it may be, I think he would be appreciated more. But I think because he came from LSU, and a lot of people are dual fans, both LSU and UL fans, they didn't want to give him a chance because he played at LSU, and the success honestly wasn't maybe what I think the LSU fans always expect out of their quarterbacks. And I think that hurt him in regard with people's kind of mindset, or they have a perception, that this is what he is. And I think that I'm pretty bullheaded on. I know that's what people's mindsets were. I mean, it's very simple, and I think he's done a really good job for what we've had to ask him to do.
Jake Delhomme, our guest, ESPN 1420, ESPN1420.com. The offense has played much better, even with 0 passing yards. I mean, there's a reason why the weather was horrendous. I mean, the first positive passing yard was from ULM with under 5 minutes to go last Saturday in garbage time. But it seems like they've opened it up a little bit more, certainly at Georgia Southern and at Georgia, and then the game against Arkansas State. Even though they had trouble running the ball, they were able to get some throws over the top. How much does that sort of opening up the playbook a little bit more just coincide with the quarterback's comfort level and the team as a whole just being more confident?
Well, I think you get young guys playing more, especially up front, the offensive linemen and things like that. It comes with the territory. But like I said earlier, and I don't want to keep repeating, I promise you, he didn't know the names of players when you first get there. There's got to be a comfort level where you start to, and you take ownership in an offense, and that's very difficult. You take ownership in an offense in the spring, in the summer, when you're working on things that you struggled with in the spring, and you're getting to know guys, working out with them. Been in those times when you're on the practice field by yourself because coaches can't be out there, and you're throwing one-on-one routes and things like that, competing against your defensive backs and knowing, hey, this guy likes this route better. He does this a little better. Oh, I need to throw him in this particular situation, put the ball in this particular spot. You just develop a rhythm with somebody. And I think we're trying to develop that, and I'm anxious to see. Now, don't get me wrong, we have a bowl game here in 10, 11, 12 days, whatever it may be. It's not like you had a whole month preparation for a bowl game. This team just played last Saturday. So you probably have a few days off, and then you're back playing. It's almost like just another bye. What I'd like to have seen a little more of a stretch where they can do some individual work instead of being so game plan specific. But that's that's the way it goes right now.
Defensively, Jake, Coach Lucas, taking over early in the season, and I think the front, the defensive line and the job Coach Harbin's done has been outstanding. I feel like the defensive line's been the most consistent unit on this team this season. The linebackers have been strong as well. Otha Peters, Lightfoot, Grenier. I could name some more. In the secondary, they've had their struggles off and on this year, playing better football later in the season than they were now. Two-part question again. What do you think the most consistent unit of the football team's been this year? And how far has the defense come in your mind, just in specifically the secondary, from where they were at the beginning of the season?
Well, I think we've a long way from the Boise game, but I think we gave ourselves a chance scheme-wise once the Boise game was finished. I'm not a particular fan of I know as a quarterback I would love to have played against our defense, because if they're going to try to bring pressure and play bump man-to-man the whole time, as a quarterback and a receiver, we've got the advantage. It's very simple. I mean, that's kind of, you're going to do that, well, we're going up on top of you, and you're going to be at a disadvantage if you don't get any kind of jam on me at the line of scrimmage. So I think Coach Lucas did a good job of changing from a 3-down front to more of a 4-down scheme, which kind of fit our personnel well, and we did a good job of rotating some bodies up front. To answer one part of your question, I think the D-line has been we've had some very good play on the defensive line. That's been one thing that I think has been fairly consistent throughout the year. Certainly the linebackers, Otha Peters, has done a really good job of making plays for us, and he is a physical force. Same with Lightfoot. But secondary, that has been the weak point of this defense, and we got to be careful when we play Southern Miss. So they're a team that I think they can put up a couple of points too. So we need to make sure we play sound in the secondary and not give up the big plays. And I think that's what you've seen somewhat from our team. We've become more of a bend but don't break, so to speak, type of secondary. And look, if we can do that and hold teams to field goals and things like that, then that'll help us out.
Former Ragin Cajun, Carolina Panther quarterback Jake Delhomme, our guest, ESPN 1420 and .com, Acadiana's best sports leader. Jake, the win over Georgia Southern kind of overshadowed by the locker room video and all the aftermath from it. Not getting into political talk here or anything like that. My question is, do you feel like I guess that there might be some irony in that situation galvanized this football team in some ways?
Well, look, I don't know. That team, the whole video fiasco didn't come out till after they beat Georgia Southern.
Right, good point.
At night. Without prior knowledge that it was being out, that team, dominated that football game. So we got to be careful there. The whole video deal, I have my feelings on it. I feel pretty strong about it. Look, I'm a very big believer of what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. I think that's sacred ground. I promise you, when that video came out, I prayed to the good Lord and thanked him that some videos didn't come out in every locker room I've ever been a part of in my life, because it's young kids full of testosterone acting silly after a practice. And, that's just that's my take on it. I don't want to go too much further. I think too much was said about it after. I think things could have been squashed a whole lot easier if we could have just nipped it in the bud right away. But I think a lot was made out of it, But I'll just keep reiterating. Thank goodness there was never a camera in any locker room that I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, you were in a lot of locker rooms, Jake. Is there and I appreciate you speaking on that. Just in terms of a team sort of being galvanized, I know individually you've spoken a lot about, and when you would go back to the Superdome as a member of the Panthers, you were jacked. I mean, you were fired up, right? And rightfully so. I mean, the Saints let you go. I mean, there was a little personal there. Is there, that's individual players are going to have their own sort of I don't want to use the word beef, Jake, but, things that are going to make them tick a little bit differently when they're playing a certain opponent than maybe somebody else. And divisions and rivalries have a lot to do with that too. But can you recall a situation from your playing days, high school, college, pro, where an entire team was just jacked up because of fill in the blank, right? The whole team was and I'm not, look, to be clear, I'm not likening this to the question I asked you a minute ago. This is just a totally different question, but you guys being jacked and galvanized because maybe somebody said something about you or you were overlooked or maybe the media was chirping. What comes to your mind from all your playing days where a whole team you were on just, it was personal?
You know, like emotions are a big part of a game. And you can get all jacked up. And I've had some unbelievable pregame speeches from people that I've heard from, and you're beyond ready to play, and you get slapped in the mouth, and you get whipped. So I'm not sure how far that really goes sometimes. But, you know, when a team does kind of pull in every direction for the common cause, for the greater part of the team, you're going to give yourself a chance to win. So did this team do that with the whole video fiasco and the us against the world mentality? I'm not in the locker room. I'm not quite sure, you know. But I know for me, I think when I think back to games where, when we came play New Orleans, certainly, you know, we wanted to win, and I love the Superdome. The Superdome for me was a dream of mine to play in it as a high school student athlete. That's your dream, to make it to the Superdome because you're in the state finals. Well, I wasn't lucky enough to do that. But we played Tulane twice when I was here at UL in the Dome, and we beat them both times. And most of the guys on our team, we just couldn't wait to play in the Superdome. And then being a member of the Saints, I loved going there every week. And certainly when I went to Carolina, it was something special about coming back to play New Orleans. But the team played hard because of the division game. I mean, we hated the Saints, we hated Tampa, we hated Atlanta. And they felt the same about us. I mean, that's a division game. So all those games, when you played each other, that was kind of like, of course you wanted to win. But I was never one of the, I just never thought a pregame hype, a pregame talk, a pregame speech. Certainly, you want to hear maybe from certain guys and things like that, but that's not going to help you win the game. Your preparation during the course of that week, that's going to help you win that game on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whenever it is. The preparation that you do prior, leading up to it, that's what makes you win.
On that note, Jake, a follow-up question. Do you feel like when, I hear guys in the NFL say it a lot, no one believed in us. Everybody said we could lose. And a lot of times they kind of will create this idea in their head. Well, yeah, some people thought you'd lose. Some people thought you'd win. But do you think maybe it's overstated when players call out the media or you guys didn't believe in us and we proved you wrong? Or is that just kind of line yap? It really didn't have anything to do with the win, but now that you won, you just kind of want to rub a little ointment in that sore a little bit.
Well, I mean, look, everybody's full of, you're full of a lot of things as a player, but your ego. You want to win every game. So every team that's going to play from here until eternity, one's going to be the favorite, one's going to be the underdog. So every underdog's going to say, nobody believed in us. We didn't get a chance. I mean, that's just kind of, I guess, the battle cry for every athlete, going forward. It's always kind of been that way. And certainly when you go play teams that you think you're better than, or maybe you can tell the line of questioning that you're getting from the media that week that, it's not a good matchup, or you might be the weak link of that team, and you can go out and prove yourself, or if you get released from a team and you come back to play them. That was evident Sunday when you watched the Saints game this Sunday against Detroit. The safety, Raphael Bush for the Lions. The play he made on the seam throw to Fleener right before the half was a play that he was so ready to play that game this weekend because he was a member of the Saints, and he knows how good Drew Brees is, and he knows how Drew's going to throw on time. But that play he made coming from basically across the field, not playing his defense, but he knew this is what a tendency that Drew will always do, and he'll always complete it, and he bats that ball down before Fleener can catch it. And that's something, I promise you, if you interview Bush after the game, that's something that I promise you in his mind, he was thinking all week long, look, they didn't want to sign me back or whatever it may be. I'm going to prove to them, and I was ready to play. Maybe that's where you can kind of get that kind of relationship, so to speak, of us against the world type mentality.
Jake Delhomme, our guest, great example there, and that was. I mean, Detroit took it to New Orleans on Sunday, no doubt, but you get a touchdown there going into the half in that short amount of time. You can carry that momentum in a little bit, and maybe they would have won the game, maybe they wouldn't have, probably not, but we'll never know. But what we do know is Bush made an incredible play, and yeah, he was jacked. He was going up against his former team. Jake, your former college team, the Ragin Cajuns, want to get back on them for a moment. They're playing Southern Miss in the Arnell Carriers New Orleans Bowl, as we've discussed. How many times did you play Southern Miss during your career here?
All four. My freshman year, we were able to beat them here in Lafayette. Sophomore year, we got absolutely hammered up in Hattiesburg. Then they came back, and I want to say they beat us at the end of the game my junior year here. The nip and tuck game beat us at the end, and then they got after us again. My senior year going up there. So 1-3 against Southern Miss. Always a good football team. Very sound, solid defensive. Whenever I thought of Southern Miss, that was everything that ever came to my mind.
I think for longtime fans of the Cajuns, they remember. It's not like they were in the same conference, but there's a lot of history between Louisiana and Southern Miss. It's a great matchup for the New Orleans Bowl, obviously. A 90-minute drive from Hattiesburg, 2 hours, 15 minutes from Lafayette. Fan bases are going to be out there. Why do you think the New Orleans Bowl is such a good fit for the Cajuns, though? Aside from geography, why else do you think that this is just kind of a match made in heaven and the reason why anytime they can get the Cajuns, they want to invite them back?
Well, I think one, you do get, look, let's be honest, they're looking, New Orleans Bowl, they're looking for people, some behinds in the seats. So let's be perfectly honest. And when you can drive an hour and a half from Hattiesburg and 2 hours from Lafayette, you should get a pretty good crowd. But I know for UL, everybody's fired up to go. You missed it last year, a bowl game, but to go back again, you won 4 bowl games. You get national exposure. I know it's huge for recruiting. And things of that nature. So it's certainly, and it's a reward for the players. I would have given anything to be able to play in a bowl. I mean, that's something that if I look back on my career, and I don't have many regrets, but I promise you, one regret would be, gosh, we never played in the bowl game. How awesome would that have been? We went 8-3 and won Big West Conference our freshman year, and we weren't invited to a bowl. I don't know how many they had back then. It was very few. I mean, that would have been just one of the greatest rewards our team could have ever possibly enjoyed. So this is a reward for those players and those coaches, and it's national exposure for our university and for our brand. And if that can help turn 1 or 2 recruits to be able to, hey, I want to go play at University of Louisiana. They've been to 5 bowls in the last 6 years, and it's just huge. It's a great reward.
ESPN 1420, ESPN1420.com. With that bowl game, Jake, you get to see Elijah McGuire one more time in a Ragin Cajun uniform. Obviously, he's had an illustrious career here. Does he remind you of anyone you played with or against in the NFL?
I've been saying this for about 3 years now. He reminds me of Bryant Westbrook, who played for the Philadelphia Eagles. Bryant was a 1AA. They were in Villanova. They were 1AA at the time. Ended up being a 3rd-round pick. But that's who he reminds me of. I just think he has acceleration through the hole, great vision, can catch the ball extremely well. And in a West Coast-type system, I think he would just absolutely flourish. I don't think we saw the true Elijah this year. He's been nagged by injuries. I think we've seen it because we haven't had those breakaway runs like we've seen in the past. And look, some could be due to some play up front because, like I mentioned earlier, we've got some young players and we're battling through some things. But I always thought he reminded me so much of Bryant Westbrook. And I'll be honest with you, I told Sean Payton that this summer. I was with Sean somewhere in July, and we were just kind of shooting the breeze, and he asked about UL and things like that, and I said, Coach, I'm going to tell you right now, there's a player there. I'm not sure when he's going to be slotted or whatnot. You need to keep your eye on him. You would do fantastic with someone like him. We talked about him, and I just think someone like Sean who knows how to get something out of his, that particular back. He's not a Sproles type. I mean, he's bigger than Darren, but just somebody like a Reggie Bush. Bush was a good running back in New Orleans, but he was a better receiver. I mean, I know when we prepared to play the Saints with Reggie Bush, that was the biggest thing all week. Where is he lined up as a receiver? What are they going to do with him throwing the ball?
I think Eli has a bright future at the next level. I think Otha Peters, and talking to a couple of scouts, Jake, they usually bring him up as well, because I'll ask about Eli, and there's been two different scouts, and they say, well, I think Peters has a future there as well. He's gotten better each year. He's done a great job at linebacker. Do you think he has a shot to get drafted and play at the next level?
Draft-wise, I can't tell you that, to be quite honest, because sometimes I have no idea maybe how some of these scouts rate some players, but I truly don't understand it sometimes. But, the way he plays, the mentality he plays with, yeah, he'll definitely have a shot. You see him getting into camp. I absolutely do see that. And he's one that he's all about ball. He loves ball. He plays extremely hard. But the way those young kids make it, you make it on special teams. It's very simple. You make the team on special teams. And I don't think I truly believe he will be one that will embrace that role and truly want to be a core special teams player, because that's how you make a roster in the NFL. If you're not this bona fide starter, it's through special teams.
Jake Delhomme, our guest, ESPN 1420, ESPN1420.com, former Ragin Cajun quarterback, longtime NFL QB. And, Jake, as many folks know that have followed your career, they know that, NFL Europe is a big reason you had a successful NFL career. You went over there, came back, and just worked your tail off, kept working, and then started many great years with the Panthers. But I say that to ask you this. NFL coaches, owners, some coaches, not all. Sean Payton wasn't in for it, but they say a developmental league is really needed, and that the climate's changing, and that something maybe not in Europe, but some form of developmental league is needed. I know Sean Payton says, look, you just need to have larger practice squads, but what's your take on a potential developmental league and NFL Europe and the value of what it is for guys like you and other players?
Well, I think, albeit a small spring type of league, is extremely beneficial to some young players. First and foremost, I think it helps quarterbacks, because there's only one quarterback on the field at a time. So game reps and things of that nature against high quality competition, for the most part, let's kind of put it in perspective. For the most part, you're playing some good competition, but for quarterback play, young offensive linemen and young immature type receivers. The receiver from the Saints, from Rutgers, Coleman, I believe is his name.
Brandon Coleman.
Someone like him would have developed. To me, a spring would have helped. And this is why I think it would be beneficial. Because now with this new CBA, there's no offseason. It's a complete joke. They wonder why guys are getting so hurt and things like that, because they're not prepared to play, physically prepared. They don't get to go through. They need to have a longer off season, and players can complain all they want and things of that nature. Off season is so easy. You're there to work out and get better and dive into the playbook, and they put a restriction on hours. I mean, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. You're telling me you don't want to get better is what I get from it. I just think you do such a disservice to some of these young kids that you can't have them for more time in the spring and in the training camp and all the padded practices. And I understand we're very sensitive to the concussion protocol and things of that nature, but you have to learn how to hit. You have to learn how to practice. You have to learn how to get your fits on defense and get your fits in the run game and things like that. It's just, given some of these, I don't know. I think you're not truly being able to develop young kids faster. So if we can get a spring league to get some of these kids to get some live action and some playing, I think it would be huge.
And on top of that, Jake, follow-up question. If you're at the bottom of the depth chart, right, you just kind of, or you're a practice squad player, how many reps are you truly getting in practice?
Well, Okay, are we talking in the spring, or are we talking like right now during the season?
I guess under both under the current format as you described it, with the new CBA, when they have OTAs, mini camps, and now during the season, how much is it for a guy that's at the bottom of the depth chart in today's league?
It's extremely difficult. I don't know what the restrictions are. I never went through a training camp or an off season under the new CBA, Scott. That's whenever I was hanging
Right.
it up, not playing anymore. So I'm a little unfamiliar with the time they're allowed on the field, but it's not much at all. And during the season, when you're on the practice squad, look, you're given somewhat of a look. The year we went to the Super Bowl in Carolina, the last 2 months of the season, we ran offensively a total of 36 plays a practice. That is it. Because you're so beat up, you're kind of in a groove of what you're doing offensively and also defensively. So by the time we're going to run those 36 plays, I'm going to run, if not all 36, I'm going to run 30 of them, 32 of them. So the backup is not going to get any. And if you have a third guy, all he's doing is servicing the scout team, is being a service in the defense. So that's all he's doing. He's running another team's plays. Now, does the young kid take ownership and get in the film room and watch the other team, what they do offensively, and try to mimic them? That's when you truly get a good scout team, when you have guys that take ownership and do that. And our better teams, we had that. We had a young QB who took ownership. We had maybe a backup tight end that was a veteran that made the young offensive lineman on the service team, hey, no, give them better looks. You got to do better on this double team. This is how they like to do it. Those guys got to take ownership. I know when I had we had a 6, 7, 8-year guy that's a backup secondary guy, but a core special teamer. Well, he ran the secondary on my look team. And look, I would tell him, hey, on cover 4, this is what they like to do. On 2, they like to do this. On 2-man, they like to do this. And he would demand those other young kids to step up and give a good look, because if you don't give a good look, you're not truly doing your team any favors. So the reps are so limited as players to develop them. It's difficult.
Jake, a couple more for you. We appreciate the time. And I think that's why, again, I think it all, to your last point, it all kind of comes under that same idea of a developmental league. I don't know the answer of what would work and what wouldn't, but you would have to think it could benefit so many players and ultimately improve the league, right? Because guys are coming in, they're not as green, they're not as raw, tackling is a little bit better. Speaking of improving the league, what do you attest the drop in ratings to? I know that in the research I've done, Jake, sort of the noon time slot, those ratings are flat, right? They're about what they were last year, but they're down a little bit in the primetime games. They're down in that America's Game of the Week, that 3:25 to 6:30 slot. What do you think the biggest reason is? Because I've heard so many different reasons or theories from a lot of different fans. As a guy that played like you, what's your take?
Well, I think the Thursday night game, I just think the quality of play is not quite there. I thought last Thursday night the quality of play was there with who was it, Dallas and Minnesota.
Right.
But the reason it was there because they both played on Thanksgiving Day, so they had a week to recover. I just think it's so difficult for teams to play on a Sunday and come back play on a Thursday. It's just hard to put a fresh new game plan in and get reps, and the quality of play probably has slipped some. I think, and maybe people think I'm crazy. I just think when you lose somebody like a Peyton Manning, you lose that face we've been seeing for 17, 18 years, whatever it may be. I think you lose. It loses some of that luster. Tom Brady missing, the first few games, 4 games this year. I just think you lose some of that luster. That's kind of my take on it. I don't know how the mobile streaming devices and the things of that nature, I don't know how that is factored in, to be quite honest, or more people starting to watch that, because football's still being talked about. You turn on any kind of sports radio or ESPN or one of the Fox Sports, whatever it is, that's still the lead dog, so to speak. So To say why, I can't give a definitive answer.
I think, look, if the NFL knew the reason why, they would do it, right?
Just another thing. Let's be honest. I think the whole the national anthem controversy by guys kneeling down. I truly believe that's had a huge effect. That is one that I do think maybe people can say, oh no, it didn't. I think that turned off a ton of people because I've run across many people. They'll just say, yeah, it's difficult to watch with guys kneeling down, not respecting the flag and things like that. So I think that does have a big effect also.
Jake Delhomme has been our guest, ESPN1420.com. A few more for you, Jake. Your take on the Panthers this season. You had a number of former teams, but you spent the most time with them and had a lot of great seasons with them. After the 15-1 regular season and getting to the Dome last year, what do you think's been the biggest missing piece, and why do you think they've really just struggled after last season?
I'm be honest with you, I'm floored that it's going this poorly. I'll be quite honest. I just thought, and a lot will be made of the Josh Norman not re-signing him, and I thought that would hurt some, but not. I didn't think it would hurt a ton. I just felt with that front seven on defense, they were going to create so much pressure, and I just felt offensively getting Kelvin Benjamin back, and I thought Cam would have I thought Cam cured so many. He cured so many problems for them. If there was a free rusher and things of that nature, he can make that guy miss and make something happen. And they just had trouble overcoming this year. You get in a shootout with the Saints. Drew comes down and Drew beats you 41-38. They lose a game when Cam didn't play. I think the Monday night game or Sunday night against Tampa Bay when they have the game completely won, and Derek Anderson has two unfortunate turnovers in the fourth quarter. One extremely poor decision he made on the 1-yard line. Kansas City game, you're up by, I think, 17 with a few minutes left to go, and you lose that. The special teams have been pretty poor, and they've had a ton of injuries, and they haven't. That ball that has not bounced their way. I hear one of your famous compadres, Kevin Foote, talk about a medicine season all the time. And look, sometimes the ball just doesn't go your way, and they've had some difficulties in that aspect. But I'm truly shocked. I just thought the way they've tried to build that team from the inside on defense and their linebackers, they didn't carry them like I thought they could have. They need to address some offensive line issues right now, to say the least.
Well, you just mentioned Footsie, and he's got plenty of theories, more theories than a sixth grade science book, as we like to say. The theory of a medicine season. You guys got to a Super Bowl, Jake. The next year it didn't go as well, but you guys had a ton of injuries on that 04 team. Do you feel like there's something to the idea of a medicine season? Is there credence there?
No, that was kind of tongue in cheek. I just had to throw that in there. But I know for us, we were decimated with injuries. I'll be quite honest. But not only that, when you're coming off that year, and even the Super Bowl teams, you're the hunted. Everybody wants to play you, and certainly Cam is a lightning rod. And the doing the dab and the Superman. I mean, with teams, you're getting everybody's best shot that next year because they want to put it to you. That's and you're getting everybody's best shot when you get some critical bounces that don't go your way and things like that, or a missed field goal. You take that first game of the season against Denver. That game's won, and they had a missed field goal to win the game at the end. So it's you got to be ready for everybody's shot.
Last two questions, Jake. I'll get them both out at once. I've kept you way too long. Really appreciate the time, my friend. Who's the best team in the league right now, in your opinion, and who's been the biggest surprise in the NFL this season?
Well, that might be the same team, both in one answer. Dallas certainly looks like. I'm not saying they're bulletproof because I think they still have maybe some issues, but that's a good football team, man. And the biggest surprise is Dallas also. I think New England, obviously the Gronkowski injury, I think that can come back to hurt them. The Raiders are having that magical season, but again, I find that ball bouncing their way. Every bounce is going their way, but they have a quarterback that's playing MVP caliber football and a defensive end who's wreaking havoc. So it looks like, New England, Oakland, there are two that are really playing well. Kansas City, sometimes offensively they scare you, but gosh, they've got a great defense in the AFC also. And then I think in the NFC, Seattle, nobody ever wants to play Seattle. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Nobody ever wants to play Seattle and Dallas. What Dak Prescott has done and the composure and the eyes that he plays with. I mean, the game is so not too big for him. I mean, he embraces it every third down. He's throwing to Cole Beasley for a first down. I mean, he uses his feet. He stands in the pocket well. He moves in the pocket well. And they're controlling the clock. That's the big thing. Their defense is fresh, and the offensive line is just powering over people. And the running back, you just can't say enough about him, from catching the ball on screens and running the sidewalk and just pounding the ball. He's big and strong, and they're solid, man. They're good. But if you have to pick a couple of teams in each conference, obviously Dallas, Seattle right now, they look to be playing the best ball. And in the AFC, Oakland and certainly New England. But I'm anxious to see how they adjust. New England does without the Gronkowski.
Jake Delhomme has been our guest talking Ragin Cajun football, the New Orleans Bowl, some NFL and memories. Jake, I usually talk to you every year just before the Super Bowl. I hope we can do it again, but I really appreciate your time today. I've kept you far too long, but hope the family's well. Hope Lauren and Lindsay are doing great. And as always, my friend, there's always an open mic for you here. If there's anything you ever need to get off your chest, whether it's good or bad, you can always call me, and the floor is yours.
You got it, man. I appreciate it, Scott. Have a good day.
You got it. That is Jake Delhomme on ESPN 1420 and ESPN1420.com.